A Picnic in Kodak by the French Broad River. Just the name of the river alone is enough to send me drifting into a state of romanticism. The lesson of this vignette is that some of the greatest pleasures can be stumbled on unexpectedly. It is important in life to always stay open to an opportunity and take all opportunities that are promising. Good luck is not luck at all. It is taking many opportunities, and surely one will be your reward. One of the first gals I met after my late wife died was Shirley. It was an online encounter. She lived not so close, so we emailed for some time to get to know each other better. I was impressed with her picture and profile and wanted to do my best to make her more attractive to her. I had a challenge. She was pretty and smart, quiet but capable, and could sting when necessary. She raised 4 children and ran a trucking business. I put an effort into my letters to be complimentary and that I might sound more interesting. She always replied that it was nice to hear from me. This would encourage me to write some more and perhaps tell her stories of who I am or things I've experienced with a bit of prose in the structure of my words. Gradually I realized that the style of those writings were the fewest well-chosen words to express a thought with innuendo and metaphor, and some words left out to allow her to finish the story in her own mind. She told me she loved the way I wrote. Shirley was an avid reader, so this was quite a compliment, and it encouraged me to do more. My first date with her was a premonition of more to come. I wanted it to be special, so I searched ahead for an unusual kind of restaurant. We drove through the country near her, and I told her of my suggestion of a place that was a little more than a farmhouse. She had heard something about it and thought that would be grand. It was small, but with enough others to feel some community and a reassurance that it was well liked. That encounter went well, and we dated again. I don't recall most of the other dates, other than that they all seemed fun. Shirley was a realtor and told me that she had a listing some halfway between her houses that could be a challenge for her. This too was in the country, and she asked if I would meet her to see what I thought of the construction and possibilities. Well, I'm a mechanical guy and played a heavy hand in building a couple of houses for myself over the years, so I agreed to give my opinion. I suggested I pack a picnic dinner, and we share that after. I explored the grounds, and Shirley walked me around the house. I don't recall it had any serious structural warnings, but I do recall I felt good being there and gave my opinion she could present it with confidence. We started to have our picnic on the porch when I suggested the French Broad River was not so far in Kodak, so why don't we try to find a spot near it? She hadn't done much business in that area, so she didn't have a spot to suggest. I don't know any more than she, but I did know that to find a river, you just generally head downhill. I started off that way, and in a few miles we came to a sign for homes for sale. We had just passed a sign for a small golf course nearby. Being the realtor, she saw the possibility and was curious and asked me to turn in and see the homes and neighborhood. We slowly drove and admired the different styles and large surroundings. They were quite nice, and with some along the river. There were several empty lots scattered about, and one was along the river where the river bank on the other side was a rugged rock face that stretched straight up from the water 100 feet or more. Small scattered bushes hung onto crags, and tall dense trees covered the top. I turned to Shirley and said, "This looks like a great spot. I think I could buy this myself. Since you're a realtor, why don't you convince me? Let's take our picnic down to the river's edge and I'll let you try. If anyone asks what we're up to, we'll have our story ready." We didn't have much to bring, so with one trip we had the blanket spread and laid out with wine and cheese and some chicken and salads. The surroundings and view seemed perfect. The air was still and warm. There wasn't an ant or a gnat to annoy us, or a person or a car to distract us. The only sounds were the birds and rippling water. We sat powwow and clicked glasses to a fine, pleasant evening. Daylight began to fade. I think it must have been fall when light seems to fade quickly in the evening. Then I couldn't believe my eyes. Shirley saw it too. A full moon was rising above the tree line across the river. It was over to the left where the bank was not so high. It had that warmer, larger glow it takes on when it is still low in the sky. The sight of that moon in that setting gave me such a rush of emotion. I could not believe my good fortune to have all these elements of beauty come together in one place and time, and accidentally, as they did, when I was with someone I admired like Shirley. She was also in awe. We laid on the blanket and sipped our wine, and glanced from each other to the moon, then to the rock face and trees, and down to the rippling water, and then back to our picnic and back to each other. It was all so good until twilight faded the view. We lingered a bit, then gathered up our things, and I drove Shirley back to her car and said good night. Shirley and I shared other wonderful evenings and adventures that were different and special, but none had so many special things happen at one time as they did that evening that made it so memorable. We saw each other over some 6 months or so when the reality of our different goals separated us as much as the physical distance between us. Since then, occasionally we would talk and she would recall that evening on the French Broad. Now 10 years later, Facebook reminded me her birthday was today, and sadly all I could think of was to click her a greeting. I was sad it couldn't have been an evening out, or at least the old-fashioned personal kind of greeting, with a call or a card or a wish said in prose as I once had done. And then it occurred I must capture that day in these words, to gift them to her and remind me of at least one wonderful time we had together.